You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Sit Down right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. Got a very special guest in this week's episode. I'm delighted to be joined by former Dundee United and Falkirk defender David McCracken. David, it's a pleasure to welcome you on the show. Thanks very much for joining me.
Good to be on. Obviously, I've seen some of your content before, so it's looking good, and I'm glad to be here.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that. How are you? How's everything been? How have you been keeping busy?
So obviously since just coming out the Falkirk job and that, I took the opportunity to set up a new business. So set up a new property business, predominantly working on a bit of estate agency, but then working into a few other developments and stuff like that. So it's challenging, it's, as I say, it's something different out with football, but it's good, learning loads and meeting loads of new people. So it's all right, it's going well.
Brilliant. Are you missing kind of football since the situation happened with Falkirk? Is it a buzz to get back into it as soon as you can, or are you kind of being preoccupied?
Not long after the kind of Falkirk situation, there was still a few jobs that had come up. So I did put in for a few, got an interview in a couple, but never actually got a job. So it was at that point I thought to myself, right, I can't keep continuing to apply for jobs and not getting them, and there's got to be kind of something else there. And for the past kind of 10 years or so, on and off, I've normally had something alongside football, like another job or another career that I've been working on. So I've not had that for the past kind of 2 or 3 years. So I thought, right, now's the opportunity to get that again. And I've been involved with property kind of over the past kind of 20 odd year, having my own properties, having a couple of kind of buy-to-lets and things. So, but this was an opportunity to take it seriously, and start to build something that, will become my main source of income, so to speak, or my main career. But with football, once the opportunity comes back up, then definitely looking to get back into it.
Brilliant. Well, making me start in your early career, like, what was it always the ambition to kind of play football? Like, what was your early kind of footballing memories?
I don't know if I can remember that far back, but no, looking back, compared to nowadays, I was probably a late starter in terms of getting into my first team and things like that. So I never got into first boys club until I was about 11, which now obviously kids are playing for 5 and 6 and stuff like that. So and it was at my kind of local team called Hullwood Boys Club. So they were great, the local team. A few of my friends went. It was one of the ones went for trials. A few was getting into the team, and then kind of went for there really. Was there for about 2 or 3 years, which was great. And coaches then at the time, Andy and Joan Lorimer, who I still speak to, which is great. Still have that relationship with them and the family. And I was actually down there not too long ago. So the kind of chairman of it, so to speak, Guy Wally Smith, he's still, the club's still running. They've actually, in the past few years, they've got their own hub now, so they've got their own football pitch, which was, Wally helped raise funds for that, and he's continuing to raise more funds, which is great, because he's a massive, he's got a massive kind of outlook on the whole community setup. And he does loads for them. So, as I said, I was back down there not that long ago, just doing a wee session with some of the kids in that, which was good. It was good to see Wally again, and see the new setup and that, which I've been doing it a couple of times, but it's looking great. So, I think it's always important to keep that kind of, keep in touch with that side of it, because that's ultimately where it began. If it wasn't for Joan and Andy doing the trials and, and me getting the opportunity to play there, then, I wouldn't have had the career that I had, because that's where it began. So, you feel as though you're ever in debt to those guys because of the encouragement and the opportunity that it gave you at that early stage. So, moving on from there, you then, we done all right. The team above us, they were they were the team to beat, so to speak. They were winning cups, they were winning leagues, you know, and we were doing all right. We were kind of getting high position in the leagues and that, and doing all right in the cups, but we were never anything brilliant, you know. We never really won too much, but you know, it was more about the enjoyment factor. They used to take us away to trips, the usual. I think the ones are still running, down to the Blackpool tournament and all that kind of stuff, a couple of tournaments down in the air and things. So at that point, that's what it was about, the enjoyment factor, and just really learning your football. But from that, started to get a few kind of small trials. Dundee United, Queen's Park, had a couple down in England, actually went down for a couple of trips away, down to Nottingham Forest, which was good at that age. You know, I think I was only about possibly 13 or something like that, 13 at the time, but that was good experience to go down there, see the difference in setup, you know, a proper kind of football setup, proper training grounds, proper facilities, and at that time quite daunting as well, because you're thinking, you know, you start thinking, am I good enough for this? What am I doing here? All that kind of things. But then you come away from it, and it, you know, it's always a better experience, and it, you know, it served me well in the years to come. So, after that, kind of moved on towards Queen's Park. You know, I was playing with Queen's Park for a while. You know, kind of younger teams, and then get put into the reserves when I think it was about 16 or so, which was good. Again, playing proper football, you know, playing against men that, you know, didn't care whether you were 16 or 35, it didn't matter, you know, they were there to win, so to speak. So bringing that element into it. And then at the same time, I was playing kind of pro youth type, as you would call it, with Dundee United on a Sunday. So the league was on a Sunday, but it was a very different setup at that point, because with Dundee United, it was more about, you know, formations, about, you know, possession, about keeping the ball, about ball retention, all this kind of stuff, and positional and formation and that. And there wasn't a massive element on winning the game, so to speak. Of course, that's the end goal, but it wasn't a case of, you know, we're going to beat, whether it be Rangers or Hibs or Hearts or whoever it might be. A lot of it was focused on, you know, how good we were on the ball, how much ball did we keep, how much possession was there, you know, how many opportunities did we create. But it wasn't like coming out after the game and, right, you know, we get beat 2-0, you know, and then focusing on why we get beat 2-0. It was more just about, right, we get beat 2-0, but we done really well in possession, we done really well at this. And for me, that felt a bit strange, you know, not going into the game fully focused on winning the game, which was a wee bit different. And I think even leading into nowadays, I think youth football's still a bit similar like that. And I found it hard going for that to Queen's Park, where people are telling you, doesn't matter how you play, you know, the main focus is winning the game. You need to get a clean sheet as a defender. And, you know, and if we score up top, then we hold on to that lead. So it was two different outlooks on the game there. Don't get me wrong, it definitely helped my progression in terms of, you know, my technique, you know, keeping the ball, concentrating on how important it was to have that possession of the ball. And then obviously having the flip side it when you're in Queen's Park, and, you know, you've got learned pros smashing you a bit, and, you know, teammates screaming in your face because you've gave the ball away, or you've made a mistake or something like that. So it was probably a good combination for me at that point.
Yeah. You obviously go to Dundee United, and what was the kind of highlights of your youth team days there, and who were the kind of good mentors that kind of helped kind of progress you into the eventually getting into the first team?
So I was, when I joined United, Tommy McLean was the first team manager at the time. So he was there, proper old school. Maurice Malpass was there, and then Terry Butcher got brought in as well. So I was fortunate enough to have Terry Butcher and Mo Malpass as my youth team coaches, which, as a central defender, there's probably, you know, you probably can't get any two better mentors in that sense. And they were different characters, obviously. Mo was very dry, very kind of old school in terms of, you know, no matter where the goal came from or who lost the goal or why it happened, it was the defender's fault, you know, because they should have done better, which was pretty harsh at times. But, you know, looking back, it was a really good upbringing through that. Terry Butcher was very similar, but he was focused on, you know, being a good defender, but also being a good football player. You know, being able to take the ball, being able to be in good positions to feed the ball into midfield, or, you know, anytime you had the ball, making good use of it rather than just being a defender and that was it. So it was a good combination, and as I said, proper old school. But some really good times in the kind of youth team side of it, you know, or the usual. If it's somebody's birthday, you know, they used to get some crazy things. Looking back now, like, you know, some crazy things you would get stripped naked, you'd get smashed a boot in the boot room, you'd get, you know, covered in the old dubbing. You know, obviously used to do the boots with the old boot polish and all that. So you would get covered in that, and then you get papped outside and tied to a lamppost. And then like every week, so on a Friday, we would need to wash the managers' cars and that. So you need to wash the managers, get the coaching staff and that. So if it landed on a Friday, that was even worse, because then you're tied up against this pole in the middle of the street. The boys are washing the cars, and then you're just getting scudded a bit. You're getting soaked every 5 minutes as well, which made it even worse, you know what I mean? So, but it was good. It was good. Some good times. Still speak to a lot of the boys, Stuart Duff, and actually, you know, reconnecting with a few as well. Boy Mark Cooper and Steph McConnell and all that. All the players that, you know, looking back, were better players than me. Much better players than me, more technically gifted, better, you know, better on the ball and that kind of stuff. But at that point, you know, there's loads of different factors that come into it, you know, different opportunities that get in the first team, you know, just how much game time are you getting? And it's strange to look back and think that, because at that point, and, you know, when you're in that youth team, that you're thinking, he's definitely going to get into the first team. He's definitely going to make a career in it. And you very much put yourself down a wee bit. I was very much that kind of like, I'm not quite as good as the next person, which probably a kind of fault in my trait. But looking back, it was probably some of the best times of my career. You know what I mean? When you're learning off the pros, you know, as well. Where Dundee United at that time was proper old school, as you can imagine. Jim McLean was still kicking about as a chairman. You know, you had to go to, you know, even to go to training. So we used to get changed at the stadium, and then would need to take all the gear and go to an actual training pitch. But at that point, you had to turn up in like smart trousers, you had smart shoes on, with a polo shirt, and that was the setup. You know what I mean? If you didn't, then I'm like, what was happening here? Thought I'd binned all my school trousers and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Didn't need them anywhere. So I ended up having to get, you know, full new rig out with these smart trousers and that kind of stuff. I thought it was brilliant to be able to wear tracksuits and casual and all that, but that wasn't the case. And again, you know, for an old school kind of perspective, it was probably a good thing, because it was a good grounding, you know, learning to be smart, be respectful, your elders, you know, your older pro and all that kind of stuff as well. We couldn't, you know, probably heard that a million times, but, you know, you had to knock before you went in the first team changing room and all that kind of stuff. Or, you know, we had to go around the back end of the changing room, come through the physio, to try and get a hold of one of the first team players if you wanted them. You weren't allowed to just charge in and, you know, and try and find your pro, whether he needed, you know, a pair of slips or a pair of shorts or where his boots were and stuff like that. So, so it was good. It was good the early days.
Do you remember your debut for the first team?
I remember, obviously. I think it was at the end of my second year. Obviously against Celtic, you know what I mean, and that's just madness. You know, I'd played a couple before it. I think I'd played Mo Malpass's testimonial, I think. And there was a pre-season friendly or something, I think, again with Gothenburg, I think, you know, just after that as well. So I'd been kind of training with the first team, you know, quite a while in that, but at the same time, you know, to actually get put in is quite daunting. But again, looking back, it was brilliant. You know, what an opportunity, you know, especially coming up, kind of growing up, like my two brothers, they were Celtic season ticket holders at the time and all that. And a lot of the family were Celtic supporters, so that was kind of main focus. And for me to be playing against Celtic was just, you know, crazy at the time. But it's, you know, massive experience. Been delighted, obviously, to get that opportunity in the game.
Then your second game as well. Do you remember
that? Aye, that was where the high, like playing against Celtic and getting your debut and all that. And then the second game just get smashed back in again and realised, you know what, I'm I've got so much to learn here. And it was, I'll be honest, like, I still to this day, I don't think it was a sending off. You know, it was. I remember Stuart Dougal was the referee, which it's crazy because of some of the guys I'm working with now. One of the boys, Jamie Mitchell, who's in and run about finance, used to play with Thistle and that as well. He brought up Stuart Dougal just the other day. He was talking him through, you know, some of the things he's doing and some finance that he's setting up, and he was talking about Stuart Dougal. But it was. Ball get played into John Spencer, who was playing up front for Motherwell at the time. And it was one of the ones I've come in at the side and I thought, right, brilliant, I'm getting there, you know, and just that little touch late, and him being an experienced striker at the time, just gets his toe in, flicks it around the corner, and obviously I catch him. And then one of the ones, I would have seen it as a yellow card, 100%, but it's no as if he was through on goal or any of that kind of stuff. So it was disappointing at the time, because it was like, Jesus, you know, what are you doing? That walk for the pitch to the tunnel was, honestly, it was like quicksand. As if I was never getting there. You know what I mean? It felt so long, and like as if everybody was focused on you, and it was tough. It was tough, but you know, I think some of the older pros run about me at the time. You know, plus the fact that like Terry Butcher, Mo Malpass, that, you know, they very quickly put it into perspective, you know, and kind of not made me feel better about it, but made me kind of take the focus away of how bad it was that had been sent off, and just the fact that, you know, they said to us, look, listen, you know, these things will happen in your career. You need to move on for it. Don't worry about it. You know, they looked at the challenge, you know, that kind of stuff. We spoke through it and then put it to bed, and that was it. And it was a case of, look, just get yourself back in, training, work hard, and then see where it goes. So it was a really good learning experience, to be fair. But obviously really disappointing at the time.
And see, obviously at that time, Paul Sturrock was a manager, and then he leaves and Alex Smith takes over. What was your kind of thoughts on like Paul Sturrock? How well did you go with him? And then obviously when Alex Smith took the job, what was your reaction to that?
So again, still early on in my kind of professional career, you know what I mean? And your manager gets the sack, so it was disappointment. You kind of possibly I didn't look to myself as much, because at that point I probably still felt as though I was kind of in between. I didn't feel like a first team player because I wasn't playing regular or anything like that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it was run about contract time as well, because I was kind of going for that change for kind of youth contract to a pro contract as well. So at that point, you know, that's when I realised, right, this is serious. This is actually a career, because at the time, you know, some of the boys that I spoke about there, who I felt were doing better than me, even though I was still involved with the first team, they get released. You know, they never got a contract, they never got that pro contract, which to me was a big eye opener, because, as I said, then I realised, right, this is serious. This is actually a job, so to speak. You know what I mean? Because then they were in a position where they didn't know what to do. You know, were they going back to college? Were they going to do something else? Were they going to get another contract in football? Which was difficult to see because they were my mates, you know what I mean? So it was hard. But then, you know, obviously Alex Smith came in, and he was a big advocate of you know, the younger player, you know, bringing youth through in that as well. So again, it was, you know, it started to kind of turn a wee bit, and he gave me more opportunity, and kind of good learning. Did play me out of position, mind you, at the time, where he started to, rather than playing me at centre back, he kind of pushed me to full back, pushed me to right back or right wing back. And at the time, I was like, you know, in my own head, I'm thinking, this isn't my position. And it wasn't until years down the line, when I was at Falkirk, that, you know, I was able to have that conversation with him, and, you know, he used it as an opportunity to bed me into the team, so to speak. Because a couple of times, and looking back, he was 100% correct, where, you know, if I'd made a mistake in this kind of central area, it was getting punished straight away, you know, where somebody would score for it, which wasn't good for me. So he, you know, his words were that he'd used it to try and protect me a wee bit, learn the game, so that if I was making a mistake a wee bit higher up the pitch or wider, there was still opportunities for that to get stopped, whether it be, you know, somebody clearing the cross or somebody else winning it back in a different area. So looking back, it was probably the best thing that they actually done for me, because I was learning the game in a different position. I was seeing it from a different perspective. Plus, obviously, if I did make any mistakes, which younger players do, then it wasn't getting punished directly. So it was good. And over the course of Alex's time, it was good learning, because he gave me more game time, and he brought in a few others, like big Jason DeVos, big Canadian centre back, who was there. I've never seen a guy head the ball in my life, but honestly, it was his technique and all that kind of stuff was perfect, and it was good for me as well, because I learnt off the back of that. He used to take me to the side after training sessions and talk me through things, talk me through the importance of different parts of the game, which for a young pro is invaluable. You can't get enough of that. So the times were good, but again, the transition of managers was difficult.
And then obviously after that, you go on and kind of break into the team, make 9 appearances the season after. You score your first goal against Celtic. How big a buzz was that?
Aye, massive. Aye, obviously, playing against the likes of Henrik Larsson and, Hartson and Sutton and all the rest of them, all the kind of bigger names that had been signed. And, Martin O'Neill's, I think might have been Martin O'Neill's first game, possibly. And aye, to obviously score was just crazy. Looking back at the time, my celebration, for one reason, I don't know why, but I ran straight to the Celtic fans. I ran straight to the Celtic fans, all this, and half the Celtic fans I probably knew. After the game, I was, driving back down to Glasgow in an absolute high, and the amount of messages I was getting, people saying brilliant, but also people saying, fucking can't believe you scored against Celtic, all that kind of stuff, So getting a bit of dogs abuse as well at the same time. So again, it was massive, because obviously first professional career goal, but at the same time, having that kind of weekend, feeling great about it, even though we get beat 2-1, I think it was. I think Henrik Larsson scored later on, but after that kind of high the weekend, and then coming back in on the Monday, and then getting told you need to clean the changes room, you need to do this, blah blah blah. So you're very quickly back down to earth. It wasn't as if, I've made it, I'm a pro, I'm in the first team, or that kind of stuff. You were straight back onto your jobs again. So it's that was good as well, because it kept you kind of a bit level-headed and kept you grounded as well. Yeah.
Was that a struggle with Dundee United, just with the kind of try to get above top half? Like, see, like the kind of next 2 seasons, you obviously break into the first team, play a lot more games, but the club only doing so well. Was there a kind of bad vibe at the club at the time, just with performance?
As you said, it was a couple of years where, never done so well. It was a bit of kind of relegation scrap and stuff like that as well. And again, looking back, it was massive experience for me, not realising it at the time, but some of the games we played in, some high pressure games, where the club could have been relegated stuff, and I was involved in them, and at the time you don't think it like that, probably don't think, as a kind of younger pro, you're just going into the game and you're not really kind of too worried, because you maybe feel as though it doesn't affect you directly because you don't know the actual scale of it. But looking back, fortunate enough to have enough experienced players around about me, they were taking the flak for it, were taking the pressure off of that, and for me, really just getting in and trying to play, trying to get more experience, trying to get more minutes. But it probably wasn't until a few years after that I realised the severity of that kind of relegation battle at the time. So, and it was, there was a bit more transition after that. Change your managers again, and change your personnel, change your players as well. Kind of constantly happening. So that's something that you find hard as well. Where you're kind of getting to know somebody, you're feeling comfortable playing beside somebody, and then all of a sudden there's that change, they're away, and you're having to get to know somebody else and get to know their strengths and their weaknesses and that. So things are constantly changing.
Yeah. Who were some of the good characters in that dressing room at the time?
Aye, so well that that round about that time there was loads who there was a few just maybe a couple of years above me that were that I'd come through the youth team, and they were probably in the cusp of the first team at that point. And then as I kind of got into the first team, they were now, you know, first team regulars. So you'd like Stephen Thompson, you know, Jim Patterson, who, like Patty, I was his boot boy for a couple of years. You know, you'd a few others. You'd Davy Hanna, you'd Charlie Miller, you know, Jim McIntyre, Billy Dodds, you know, kind of going through the years. You know, Alan Archibald was there. You know, you could go on and on. The amount of players that were there, the experience they had, and the level they'd played at. You know, at the time, I'm just thinking, you know, I'm just thinking about myself, trying to get more games and stuff like that. But you don't realise actually the calibre of player run about you. In the early days, to be fair, there was a lot of Scandinavians. You know, there was a lot of kind of Norwegians and stuff like that as well, and they were brilliant. You know, they were great guys, different type of characters and that. But then more as Alex came in, and then kind of, you know, Chizzy and Paul Hegarty and that after him, those kind of changed, and it was more kind of Scottish or English, and, you know, more kind of homebred players that were coming in as well. So, but there was, you know, some of the things that were on were mental. You know, the boys loved a drink after after the weekend game and that, and, you know, it quickly became, there was a Sunday club. You know, boys would meet up for a few beers on a Sunday and that, and then, you know, and then it started to evolve into a Monday club as well. So there was a few having a few beers on a Monday as well. But, you know, to imagine that nowadays, it just wouldn't happen. You wouldn't be able to get away with it. You know, and I'm pretty sure you can probably guess some of the ones who were in the Sunday club and the Monday club and that, you know what I mean? But it was good to even that side of it as well, as a young pro, you know, get out and nights out and, you know, Christmas dues and whatever. That's part of the experience, you know, learning that, you know, and don't get me wrong, you get absolutely scudded about in the nights out, you know what I mean, because you're the younger ones. But it's part of it, you know, that's the sort of thing you need to go through. You know, they used to have more than a few nights out in Dundee, with some stories that probably I couldn't tell on here, to be fair. But as I say, that's all part of the experience, you know, part of the learning.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, after that, kind of Alex Smith leaves and Ian McCall gets a job. Obviously, Paul Hegarty was a caretaker as well. What was that kind of period like, and how excited were you to work with Ian McCall?
Well, so, you know, it was, again, another transition. Thought Hegarty done all right, you know, in his kind of caretaker time, and I think he was possibly quite keen to take the job, but it never happened. I think at the same time there was that transition of Jim McLean leaving and Eddie Thompson coming in at the time as well. So, and I think it was Eddie that brought in Ian McCall. So there was a lot of chat about that, because I think it was around about the time Falkirk was it around about the time they'd won the league but never get promoted and things like that? I think so. So I don't know if that's why McCall made the jump. And then there was talk of like bigger money and, you know, big things happening at the club and that. And there was a bit of transition. You know, he came in, brought a load of new players with him. A number of boys for Falkirk, you know, who now, you know, are still some of my mates, you know, Mark Kerr and things like that, who'd come and done really well. And it's, you know, at that point there was a bit of, you know, as I said, there was transition there, but I think that season we did get a bit better, but I think it was the following season where we ended up in fifth position. You know what I mean? We got into the top half at the time, which for the club was the first in a good few years. Yeah. So that was progression there, and you know, that was, we actually got a trip away for that, which again was, you know, mental. Some of the stories on that, but I think for that point at the club, you know, it seemed to be progressing. You know, bringing McCall in, some new personnel. You know, and then, you know, the year after we get into fifth position, so they kind of seen that starting to progress forward a wee bit. But then, you know, I think the year after it, things didn't start too well, and then that's when McCall ended up leaving.
Were you surprised when Ian McCall left that Gordon Chisholm took over?
Possibly, because at the time you see, just obviously the kind of structure it, where McCall's the manager and Big Chizzy was the assistant in that. for him then to change and be the manager, because it was, you know, as an assistant, you're probably a different type of person, or a different type of coach, and that with the boys, you've got to be in a different kind of position with the players, and then to change for that into the manager, I think was quite hard for him. Obviously, you know, Dodds ended up being the assistant in that as well. But yeah, I thought, you know, I enjoyed, you know, Chizzy's training and that as well, and I thought he'd done quite well. And Dodds was really, really good for my learning and that. And I knew kind of Dodds on a bit more of a personal level, because I used to travel with him. So it was a kind of travelling. We used to travel for Glasgow, and there was myself and him, Mark Kerr and Jim McIntyre at the time. So we had that kind of relationship there where, you know, it was very comfortable, which, you know, at times was good for me, I thought, because he would openly tell me stuff that I didn't want to hear, so to speak. And it was easier for me to take on board because I knew him on that sort of level, which, you know, with other coaches, you might take offence to it, or they might put it across the wrong way. Whereas, you know, that at that point it was easier for that kind of relationship. But you know, I think maybe with Chizzy taking the job as well, there was a higher expectation because we'd got 5th position, and then obviously getting into the European games and that as well was tough for him, because, you know, I think it was his first managerial job, I think, or maybe Dundee before. But you know, the expectation's high, so you've got to kind of hit the ground running, which was tough for him.
What was it like, obviously, the first full season when you reached the League Cup semi-final? Obviously, you lost quite heavily to Rangers, but then you reached the final with the Scottish Cup against Celtic. What was the kind of memories of those 2 runs like?
Aye, brilliant. You know, it was good because, you know, it came off the cusp of, you know, the European games and that as well, and the club the team seemed to be in a fairly decent position at that point, where we were kind of challenging. There was a bit more belief, and you know, as you say, getting to the semi-final, but then we get absolutely spanked. So that was a massive disappointment, you know what I mean, because it was an opportunity to go and show how far we came, and, you know, and actually, you know, make a game of it and try and get yourself into the final. But it was just one of the games, you know what I mean? Like at half time, you're just thinking, Jesus, do we need to get back out here? You know what I mean? And you're just kind of trying to stop the wave. So that was difficult. It was difficult, but, you know, the experience again, you know, I always say, you know, you either win or you learn. You know, you don't kind of lose or fail, so to speak. And that was definitely a massive learning experience for me, that game. And, you know, and having a taste of being at, you know, playing at Hampden, playing against bigger teams and things like that as well. So you want more of that, you know, and you want to kind of rectify, obviously, that result anyway, but you want to get a bit more taste of it. And then again, the final, you know, it was disappointing that I never played, you know, but at the time, looking back now, I understand it. You know, there's different factors that came into it. You know, Big Gary Kenneth at the time had come into the team and was doing really, really well, and it was a massive prospect for the club. You know, and possibly behind the scenes, you know, there might have been clubs looking at him. I'm pretty sure there was clubs looking at him. I think Celtic possibly being one. So, you know, for the club not to play him, then, you know, it might have affected his kind of calibre and, you know, his prospects, and the club's opportunity maybe to sell him on for money. So, but it was disappointing, obviously, you know, to get beat as well. You want to go there, but to be part of the occasion, you know, at that point in my career was great as well.
Obviously, after that as well, Gordon Chisholm leaves and Craig Brewster takes over. What was your thoughts on that?
It was a bit strange because obviously Craig had been in the, playing in that as well, and had been in the changing room, and that for me was a strange time because he was still in the changing room, you know, as a manager, and he was still involved, he was still getting changed in the changing room. He was still on a very personal level with the players, but, you know, at the same time trying to make that switch, you know, of being a manager and then obviously being one of the boys. But I don't think it worked because there's too much familiarity there. There was too much, it was too comfortable. It was too, you know, it just never worked because can't just switch it like that. You can't just be a manager and speak to somebody in a manager's mode and then be standing in the shower with them having a laugh about something. You know, it doesn't work. You've got to have that separation point. And I think that's probably why, you know, things didn't really work out at the time. You know, there was a lot of experienced pros in the team and in the changing room, and I don't know if that was a factor as well, where, you know, I think Craig Brewster at the time found it hard to take on points for the experienced players, and, you know, maybe took it personally or whatever. I don't know, but, you know, it didn't kind of quite click, to be honest.
Yeah. Were you, obviously after that, were you happy to kind of try and kind of look and see what other clubs were out there, or were you kind of keen to stay on at Dundee United? What was your thoughts going into that last season?
Aye, well, obviously when Craig Levein came in, at that point, I was thinking to myself, because I wasn't playing great, I knew I wasn't playing great, and the team weren't going through a great time either. And you know, I kind of started to think to myself, you know, is it better for me to go somewhere? Because it was one of the points where I felt as though I wasn't progressing anymore. I wasn't, you know, I was playing against the same teams all the time, and I felt as though I was having the same games against the same teams. So at some teams I would play really well and would win the game. In other games I'd play against certain players and be horrendous. You know what I mean? Be like really bad and maybe make a mistake or give a penalty away or whatever it might have been. Yeah. And I thought to myself, you know, it's too familiar. It's too, you know, I felt as though I was kind of like going backwards, so to speak. You know, I wasn't progressing. And at that point, obviously, Craig Levein came in, and he made a point of saying that, you know, because for him it was just about getting the club moving forward again, try to get into decent positions in the league. And he'd put it out there because I think there was quite a lot of players out of contract at the end of that season. So he'd openly said that nobody would be getting spoke to about a contract until the end of the season. Mm-hmm. And for me, you know, at that point, I was already thinking about leaving and, you know, trying having a different test and things. And I had a couple of open conversations with him, you know, and it was good because he came back with some really good feedback, and I probably forced the issue a wee bit more, where I said to him, you know, it was coming up to Christmas, and I think, you know, it was around about the time I'd you know, my oldest, Rachel, she was only just a baby, and I was thinking about, you know, the next contract and what's going to happen and things like that. So I kind of forced the issue a wee bit, and probably, I think just before Christmas, you know, I had an open discussion with him, and he said, look, you know, I'm not wanting to make decisions on contracts, but if you want me to tell you right now, then he says you won't be getting another contract. He says, you know, unless you play outstandingly between now and the end of the season, he said, I don't think it's right for you to get another contract. He said, I think for you personally, I think you've been here a long time, and I think you need a new challenge. I think you need to learn a new way of the game. He said, because it's too easy for you here. You know, things are happening and you're not really you're not learning from it, so to speak. It's just happening. So he says, maybe you need to go somewhere else. But on the flip side of that, he was really good because he said, look, it's not that I'm not going to play you. It's not that I'm going to bomb you out. You're not going to train with the young boys and anything like that. He says, I still need you to play. Mm-hmm. He says, so you still be playing a lot of the games. He says, and if I can help it, you know, help you out with it, and which he did, you know, he kind of put me on a couple of players, a couple of teams and stuff like that as well, which was great, to be fair, because I've seen it throughout my career where if boys aren't getting a contract, then they don't feature a lot of the time, and, you know, they do get bombed out or they get put to the side, which isn't great either. So it was still an opportunity for me to play, and kind of, you know, if teams were coming to watch me, then an opportunity to show that I was worthy of a contract somewhere else, which was good. Aye.
And obviously, after, how do you look back on your time at Dundee United?
It was great. You know, I mean, it was some of the biggest learning times in my career. Some of the best times in my career, both, you know, socially and through football. You know, got the opportunity to play in Europe, to play in cup finals, semi-finals. You know, some great times, some lifelong friends, you know what I mean? Some people that I'm still friendly with, still speak to, and that as well. So, you know, and for me personally, I don't think I would have wanted another kind of upbringings through that youth period. I don't think, although at the time it felt really harsh and really severe because the likes of Terry Butcher, Mo Malpass, I'd never even mentioned John Blackley as well, who he was straight to the point. He would be in your face, that proper old way shouting and all that kind of stuff. But that was a good upbringing for me, I thought, because I think there's a massive part of that missing for the game now, where you can't shout at players, or you can't give them too much criticism because they take it personally, and then it affects them and affects their game, rather than them being able to handle that and come back and show your reaction. So it was great. It was superb, and I'll always look back on it as a great time in my career.
Brilliant. We'll move on to your move to Wycombe. Obviously, when did you first hear about that, and what was your first kind of interactions like with Paul Lambert?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned there, just before Christmas, I knew that I wasn't going to get a contract. So even at that point, Paul had been in contact with my agent, and there was an opportunity for me possibly to go down on loan. It happened. That was kind of near the end of the window, so it kind of happened. It looked as though it was going to happen, but then we at United, I'm trying to remember who it was, I can't remember the player, but there was somebody else who was supposed to be coming in, I think. There was supposed to be a couple other kind of movements happening, but another one of the boys got injured, one of the centre-backs, so that was it dead. He just said to me, look, I can't let you go because I'm short on defenders, so that killed it off then. But a month or two after that, Paul had come back, and then I met him in Glasgow and that, and kind of got the deal done, which was brilliant, because at that point I'd played against Paul, a number of times when he was playing for Celtic. So to me, he was like Paul Lambert, captain of Celtic and all that kind of stuff. And sitting down face to face talking to him about a contract, and he's wanting me to sign, and that was a weird experience. But then I came away from that thinking, I had massive confidence in it as well, because he did want me to sign. So I got down there, it was, and I think it was probably the best thing. I had a couple of other opportunities up here, of possibly going to Hibs or Gus McPherson. I spoke to him at St Mirren as well, and and there were good opportunities, and again, but I just felt as though I needed something different. I needed out of Scottish football, out of the kind of Premier League at the time, so to speak, because again, if I moved to either of them, I would have still been playing against the same teams, and possibly some of the same players as well. So I looked at that, looked at obviously England. There was a couple of other opportunities possibly in Sweden and that as well, but that was more on a kind of trial basis, and I felt just having a young family at the time, I thought better to try and get something more secure. So that's when the move to Wycombe came about. Aye. And
what was the standard of League Two like compared to the Scottish Premier League?
I think and I said this when I moved in there. There was a lot of the press I done was like, the press down there was like, why have you moved from the Scottish Premier League to League Two? Mm-hmm. Like so far down the leagues, and I was like, well, it's weird because if you look at some of the facilities of Scottish clubs compared to what I moved to, even Dundee United, like we used to, as I said, still get changed at Tannadice, then we'd go to like a training pitch somewhere. Sometimes it would be using a junior pitch or like Camperdown that they had at the time, and then the last part they changed to the facility they've still got, I think, over on St Andrews, but there was never any kind of, this is Dundee United's training ground, so to speak. Mm-hmm. There was none of that. Whereas when I went down to Wycombe, they had their own training facility. They'd an area with 3 or 4 grass parks on it. Inside, you'd a full complex. There was a full gymnasium in it. You'd offices up the stair. You'd a chef. You went in the morning, and he'd make you your breakfast, and then you'd have your lunch all week, and everything was paid for. And it was on a different level, even though I'd come down a couple of weeks, so to speak. It was on a different level, with the infrastructure and stuff like that running about it. So, and again, at the end of the day, it was a new challenge. Paul Lambert had kind of painted the picture that he was wanting to do things down there. It wasn't a case of going down and just playing for Wycombe. It was going down to win League Two and get promotion. Which for me, that was what I needed. It was that sort of drive, that sort of focus that I needed to take it to a new level. And then on making me club captain was brilliant for me and my career, because it changed my thought process. It changed my perspective. It wasn't just me I was looking after, so to speak. I now had to take care of these other players. I had to think about what they needed, and had to interact with them and the manager and the coaching staff to make sure things were okay. And then it was brilliant. It was I massively enjoyed it, and enjoyed that factor of taking on that responsibility as well. But the level of football, I think, I think it ranges. In terms of football, doesn't change much. I don't think. You've got 2 goals, 2 teams. You're trying. You've got the same objective to win the game, but style of football, I think, in League Two there was possibly more teams that were set up similar in terms of their personnel, where they maybe had the big striker with a small striker off them, and they would go back to front and try and get any joy off the big one, and then flood players round about it for there. There was a couple of teams who would be persistent in trying to play out for the back and try to play football, and they would have loads of possession. But you're the exact same in Scottish football as well. You know what I mean? So, and that's a lot of what I said when I went down there. Things don't change that much. But that first year going down, obviously playing against different players, having to learn, that I didn't know the player I was coming up against, so I didn't know his strengths, I didn't know his weaknesses, I didn't know how to play him in certain types of, positions when the ball was coming up. So that was good. And I get caught out a few times, I'll admit, a few times with different players get caught out and shown up a wee bit. And that's where the learning was happening. You know what I mean? Because I realised that I couldn't just take it at face value that because he was a big player, it was always going to come to his head, or it was always going to be a challenge in there. There was a lot of bigger players down there, more physical as well, that would quite happily take it on their feet, turn you, run you down the line, try and chop you up a bit. It didn't matter what sort of physique they had. So again, that was good learning for me as well. Yeah.
And then obviously your first season, you finished 7th, and Paul Lambert resigns. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, that first year, so we get into the playoffs, you know what I mean, and end up getting put out of Stockport, I think, and I never played those games, and being the club captain and that, I had a bit of a conversation with Paul at the time, and but he was upfront and honest, and he said, and he played different players and that, and which was fair enough, and it was still gutting to get put out, mind you, because we were kind of coming on to a bit of a run near the end of the season, but just kind of missed out on that. And I think that, plus there was a couple of other issues going on at the club, I think, and it was a bit of a shock when obviously he said he was leaving, and at that time myself and possibly 1 or 2 others get wrapped up in it a wee bit, and we were possibly in the same instance of wanting to leave the club as well, because of what had happened. But Peter came in, and he quite quickly had a meeting with myself and a few of the other experienced ones at the time, just to kind of dampen things down a wee bit, and and to basically just asking for an opportunity for us to listen, to look and see what it was he was trying to do. So we did, and then he set a good structure in place, and you could see obviously the experience behind him, some of the clubs he'd managed at, and obviously involved in the England setup and everything. You could see that he was a high calibre manager, and it was a different experience, and again, from a captain's point of view, things changed again slightly, where he brought me in on a lot more things, or he was asking me a lot more, and what do the players want? So that added something else to my position as well, which was good. But he was very structured in what he done, and he was very open at the start of the season. He made it clear that no matter who you were, what position you were, how well you were playing, how badly you were playing, he says, I will pick a team on the Thursday or the Friday that will beat the team that we are going to play on the Saturday or the Tuesday or whatever it might be. He said it doesn't matter where you're at, or it says, so don't let it come as a surprise if the team's had 5 clean sheets and the back four are playing great, and I change it to a 3 and one of the defenders come out, don't take it personally. Don't think they've done, you know, I obviously be aggrieved at it and come and speak to me, but it's for the better of the team. And he done it on a number of occasions. You know, I remember Jermaine Easter at the time, Welsh internationalist, who was on fire. I think he'd scored in the last 6 games or something like that. He scored a goal in like the past 6 games. And he dropped him. He took him out of the team. And Java lost himself. Like normally every Thursday we would do shape on the team. So he would set the team up so that he knew, you know, you would do a bit of analysis. He would name the team, we'd go on the pitch and work on it. And Jama just he couldn't accept it. Couldn't accept the fact that he was flying, you know, scoring these goals. I think it was at Chesterfield we were going to play, and Peter had set it up. It says, you know, it's going to be a horrible game. He says they're playing well. He says they're not a footballing team. He says they'll try and batter us. He says it's just going to be an absolute grind. He says we might get 1 opportunity, 2 opportunities. He says, but he says it's going to be like off the cuff or a mistake or something happening. He says it won't be pretty. And he brought in the boy Chris Zabrowski at the time. Now, Seb was decent enough player. He was nowhere near Jermaine's like link-up play and knowledge of the game and stuff like that, or finishing or anything at all like that. But he was lightning quick and he was very direct. Very awkward guy. Very reminds me of like Fash up here, Nathan Austin. That plays with was at Kelty and that. So very much like that. Very much direct. Wants to get to go. Very quick in that, but very awkward to play against. So anyway, the game goes where, you know, again, as he said, it's an absolute dogfight, right? Just battering hell at each other. Not really much in the game. And I think it was maybe about 70 odd minutes or so. And we basically, it was just one of the ones, like clearance. We clear it. Zeb gets onto about halfway line, right? Takes this horrendous touch, right, which puts him about 20 yards away, right? Gets onto it and then scores. We end up winning 1-0. You know what I mean? And it was like, you know, and Peter says after the game about it, you know, he said about the whole kind of changing the team. And don't get me wrong, Jama still wasn't happy about it. And ultimately, getting into, I think that was getting into the kind of January window. He ended up putting in a transfer request in that, you know what I mean, and try to get away because of that, but partly because of that. But at the same time, you know, Peter stuck to his morals, stuck to what it was he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, and ultimately it got us promoted. You know, at the end of the season, we were flying. The first half of the season, I think we went on something like a 19-game clean sheet record or something like that. I think it was maybe 20 or 21 games unbeaten. Level with, I think, Liverpool at the time. There was only us two in the whole of Europe, I think, that was kind of on that sort of level. And then the second half of the season, with a few injuries, a few suspensions, things started to kind of a wee bit sticky near the end of the season, and we started to drop points. I think we'd been top of the league for most of the first half of the season. And then, you know, finally to get across the line at the end of the season, that last day was madness. Like we were playing Rochdale, I'm sure. No, we were playing. Rochdale could get promoted as well. I'm trying to think who it was we were playing now. I can't even remember. But we basically had to win or I think it was score more than Rochdale. So basically we went down 1-0, and it was like silence, like the stadium just died. You know what I mean? We were like, fucking hell. So managed to get ourselves back into the game. And then I think it ended 3-2, but your old dad coming up with a finishing goal, a slide tackle for about 2 yards. But then the game finished and we were still waiting in Rochdale to finish. And there must have been a good 8 or 9 minutes because it was the opportunity for them to get promoted. The stadium was packed. It was like the game had to get stopped at certain periods and all that. So ended up, we'd finished the game, come off the pitch, we're sitting inside, we're in this room waiting for the scores to come in, and then they come in and it was just pure eruption. You know what I mean? Chairs flying everywhere and boys getting all over the place. But it was brilliant. You know, it was great to have that experience, getting promoted. And it, you know, I'll never forget it. You know what I mean? Because it was a massive part to my career, getting promotion like that. So, really good times. Really good times. Great club as well. Great, like, small community club, but with massive aspirations. And obviously, you've seen it over the past few years.
Yeah.
With Ainsworth and that, how well they've done. You know, there's still a couple of boys down there, like Matt Bloomfield, who's still down there. Still speak to him, and you know, it's just a great club to be involved in.
See, obviously, you said there about getting promotion and that. Were you keen to stay? Like, what happened to the contract talks?
So obviously the end of that year, and there was quite a number of us out of contract, and you know, just having the conversation with other players and knowing that there was definitely a couple of them leaving, and you know, think to myself, where's the club going to be at next year? Once we do get promoted into League One, and it was an opportunity. There was a couple of opportunities. There was a couple of other clubs looking at me, they were speaking to, and MK Dons being one, and you know, fair play to Wycombe. It was, for me, the decision was never about money. You know, it was more about the next year or two, because I thought to myself, how long am I going to be based in England? You know, what can I achieve? You know, and my aim predominantly was to get to at least Championship football, that sort of level, and I seen MK Dons being in a better position. I think they just missed it in the playoffs the year before, or that season, sorry, and I thought to myself, well, they're already in that position, they're already challenging, you know, and looking to kind of strengthen and go again next year. So I took that opportunity and kind of left, which, you know, and again, the kind of chief executive at the time, Steve Hayes, he'd, you know, had a couple of really good open meetings with him, and he, you know, he pushed the position of the money side of it, and it wasn't as if I was on a better contract going to MK Dons or anything. You know, Wycombe were offering me a pretty decent contract, which was on the same level as well. But it was just more about what I felt moving forward, and he understood that, and he, you know, not that he was happy to accept it, but that was just football. And then so made the move to MK Dons, obviously with Di Matteo for about a week.
Did you ever meet him?
No. That's
what happened there?
That's so actually I'd went to obviously a lot of this is done through agents and you know, stuff like that, and you know, they've been to see me playing a lot kind of stuff, but obviously I've never had any formal conversations. But at that point, when I signed, when I went up to sign, I think Di Matteo was abroad at the time, for one reason or another. So it was the assistant, Eddie Newton, I think it was at the time. So he'd met me, you know, took me around the training ground and the facilities and that. Went to the stadium, met the chairman, Pete Winkleman, who was an absolute unbelievable character, right? Just, you know, for a guy who had so much money and so much wealth and that, just, you know, you'd walk by him in the street, you know, he was just a kind of wee, you know, just such a normal guy, such a down-to-earth guy, you know what I mean? But anyway, so obviously met, and then about a week later, it got announced that Di Matteo took the Chelsea job, and I'm like, what's happening here? You know what I mean? So then, at that point, we were like probably about a week or so after that, we were back in. We were in for pre-season, so we came in and there was no manager. So it was one of the guys that ran the community. He kind of took charge of the first team and organised it, and there was already a pre-season trip arranged to Portugal. So we went away to Portugal on a pre-season trip with no manager, and then, you know, at that point, things were, you could see things were a bit lax, you know what I mean, because there wasn't any manager there. But then we found out that obviously Paul Ince was taking the job, and within, you know, kind of a few hours of that being announced, he was in Portugal to see the boys. So it came across, to be fair, I think the second last day or something we were there, kind of introduced himself, went through a few things, and but then disappeared again. you know what I mean? So then we never seen him until we get back. But again, you know, massive personality, massive in the game. You know, the experience he's had behind him and the level he's played at is just unbelievable. And to be fair, I get on really well with him. A lot of the boys said they found him hard to speak to, or felt as though it was hard to communicate. Or I don't know if it was just he was one of the people that had like an aura around about him when he walks into a room. You know, there's a kind of change in atmosphere and all that stuff. But I felt as though I could speak to him just on a normal level, so to speak, whether it be about football or family or, you know, kids or school or whatever it might have been, which was good for me. That first year, I probably didn't have the best of years, to be honest. I had a couple of niggle injuries and a couple of hamstrings and stuff like that, and it was a bit stop-start for me, to be honest, which was frustrating because it definitely affected how I played, and I didn't play anywhere near as well as what I could have, and again we kind of missed it, an opportunity in the playoffs and that as well, which was disappointing, and then that ultimately sealed the deal, I think for Ince as well. And then I ended up moving on for that as well.
What was happening? Was it obviously Carl Robinson come in? Did he just not take a shine to you at all? Like, what happened there?
Aye, so it was a bit of both. Where I don't think he was overly keen on keeping me. Right. I still had another year in my contract, but Brentford had come in to inquire about me, so they were asking about me, and so then Carol basically says, look, you know, I'll not hold anybody back. He says, I'll give you the opportunity to speak to them. He said, and I think his words were basically, you know, it would probably be good for you to speak to them, which told me kind of everything I need to know.
Aye.
It was one of the ones, if I forced the issue instead, fair enough, but, you know, I probably wouldn't have played as much, or who knows, but you know, I seen it as an opportunity that I probably wasn't going to be number one or be, you know, in contention for a lot of games. So the opportunity, well, there's another club there that wants you, so I went and spoke to Brentford, and, you know, and it was a bit closer to home at the time as well, because I was still staying in Reading at the time, so a lot of the time I was travelling for there to Milton Keynes, which every day was a bit of a journey, whereas Brentford obviously is just right in the start of London, so which is only kind of 20 minutes, half an hour away, so it made it a bit of an easier decision as well. Yeah,
definitely. You only played 3 games there. What was the reason for that?
Aye, what a great time I had there, honestly. But it was probably, I always look back at it on not the worst part of my career, but just the most frustrating part, you know, where throughout the time before, I'd always been in a team or had the opportunity to play a team, or, you know, I had the opportunity to show that I was worthy of playing in the team, so to speak. Whereas when I went to Brentford, again, there was the manager Andy Scott was there, and there was a big turnover in players that year. I think there was about maybe 9 or 10 that came in that year. Myself and there was another boy, another Dutch centre back, Pim Balkenstein, who came in, and basically the kind of conversation at the time when he met both of us was that we were coming in as the kind of main 2 centre backs. You know, there was a couple for the year before who'd done fairly well, and that were still staying there, but, you know, he wanted to come in more competition in that as well. So you get into that thinking, right, brilliant, get a good opportunity here to go and play. Had a decent enough pre-season, played most of the games or part of the games, and then went into the first game of the season against Carlisle, and we were 2-0 down after about 15 minutes, right? And it was just, I don't know what, we just kind of started, couldn't get to grips. The game was up at Carlisle, they were bang at it, they were like on the front foot, and ended up at half time, myself and one other, I think it was the right back, we get hooked, so whipped us off at half time, right? And I'm like, what's happening here? You know what I mean? At least go back into the second half or whatever. So it was his decision. But after that, the kind of relationship between me and Andy Scott just completely changed. You know, even trying to get any conversation out of him after that game just wouldn't come with any sort of decent conversation, or I wouldn't have a conversation. So after that, I found myself on the bench a lot, knowing squads, you know, and we're talking maybe 5-6 games into the season. I'm thinking to myself, what's happening here? Like, you know, the conversation you had before I signed, you know, at least tell me, you know, at least have a conversation and say, look, you're not the player I thought you were. You know, I'm not going to play you. You're not going to play a lot, whatever it might be. But anytime I had the conversation, it was just, no, listen, you know, things have changed, this and that, and just kind of try completely dress things up. And they would never get any proper substance out of it. So that started to become a bit frustrating. And then, you know, eventually getting nearer the January window, I managed to get out on loan to Bristol City, which again, went there. They were having a bit of a tough time at it. And, you know, after about 3 or 4 games, maybe, I tore my hamstring, and it was just like you know, one of these seasons. It was becoming a bit of a nightmare. So ended up I just recently extended my loan to the end of the season there as well. So anyway, I was out with a hamstring for a while, and then managed to get fit. But then can I come back into it? Then the manager at the time, Dave, God, can't I get his name now? He ended up getting a sack. And one of the captain at the time, he ended up taking over caretaker at the end of the season. So he went with a number of boys who'd been there for a few years, and you know, felt trusted in them, which was absolutely fine. You know, I wasn't really involved until near the end of the season, and then I think one of the second last games or something I was playing, get bloody sent off against Notts County, I think. So it was just, you know, one of them ones, just wipe it off the board. And then again, you know, that was the summer where I had to kind of make a few decisions, where Andy Scott would get the sack for Brentford.
Yeah.
You know, and then new manager comes in, and I still had another year, but basically they were just clear. It was like anybody who'd been on loan or hadn't played much, just basically get told, we don't want you. You know, like, just agree to leave, so to speak, agree your contract and leave. So again, at that time, it was very frustrating, you know what I mean, because I through probably most of the season, and as you say, played 3 games there, played maybe 3 or 4 with Bristol City. So coming for, you know, the couple of years I'd had before, where I played pretty much every game for Wycombe over the course of 2 years, then going to MK Dons and playing probably about 75% of the games there, then have a season of not playing was very frustrating. But that's what can happen in football.
Yeah, you know? Definitely. Your old teammate Derek McCann, he was at St Johnstone and you signed there. How did that come about?
So my time down in England had been kind of constant, because I played with Dale at Dundee United. So there was, you know, kind of regular conversations or messages and that, and he'd, you know, messaged a few times about players that I'd possibly played against down in England that he was looking at signing, you know, things like that. So when he knew I was leaving Brentford, you know, he spoke to me, and there was a couple of kind of family issues going on as well, where I felt at the time it might have been better for me to be back in Glasgow.
Yeah.
So that definitely played a part coming back up the road. So that's what happened. But it was tough at the time, because having that season of not really playing and having a few injuries and being in the gym a lot, I didn't realise how much physically it had actually affected me. So come up into pre-season and went into St Johnstone, and I knew a lot of the boys there, who were there, and I knew they were fit boys. And pre-season had never been a bother for me, to be honest. I was always, you know, pretty decent at running. It never kind of caused me any problems. But after about 2 or 3 sessions, I thought, fucking it, I'm miles off it here. Like, absolutely miles off it, you know what I mean? And then realised that, you know, I was never one to be conscious about my weight or, you know, feel heavy or any of that kind of stuff. But I then realised I was probably a good stone overweight and where I should have been at, you know what I mean, physically. So, you know, when I realised that, and it showed up massively the boys at St Johnstone were on a high level anyway in terms of the fitness and that, which made it even harder for me because I was miles off where I was normally at. So it quickly showed up that I was a good distance away from where I should have been at. So I had a couple of conversations with Dell, and I'd still played a couple of games early on in the season, but he then said to me, he said, look, I think you need to take a bit of time just to pull yourself back into where you should be. You know what I mean? Take a bit of time, just hammer away at it. He says, you'll still be involved in games and whatever. He said, but we need to get you stripped in a bit, need to get you back to your fitness levels and that, which was good because it was an honest thing to say, rather than, just kind of dwindling on and then me maybe not playing as many games because I wasn't as fit. It was hard at the time to hear, but it was the right thing to hear because I knew it myself. I was miles off it. So that was kind of a bit of a transition time in terms of that. And it was weirdly because that happening to me, it gave me a bit more focus on me physically and actually how much did I think about myself in terms of my fitness, in terms of my nutrition, in terms of what I was doing away for training and football and that as well, which then took me to a kind of a sideline or a different perspective in terms of what was I doing outside football, which then got me into a couple of fitness courses. So I looked at my level gym instructor and then my personal training qualification, which ultimately, has served me well over the past kind of 10 years, where I've worked as a personal trainer, had loads of clients, helped others as well. So again, my kind of outlook at, something bad that happens always brings good somewhere else. That's exactly what happened. My personal position of being unfit, being, slightly overweight, made that transition and changed my mindset to think about, on a more understanding of, understanding fitness and nutrition and that, which then obviously gave me a bit of career elsewhere as well. So
yeah, definitely. Obviously, Derek McInnes leaves and goes to Bristol City and Steve Lomas comes in. Did you know Derek McInnes would do well as a manager?
Aye. He's got the attributes. You see it very quickly. Him and Tony Docherty, great coaches, great manager. And Dell's very good at one-to-one management. As I said, I knew him on a kind of personal level because I played with him. Yeah. But at the same time, I seen it through other players as well. He knew how to keep boys on side when they weren't playing. He knew how to keep them part of it and make sure they were always part of the experience, even though they might have only played 5 or 6 games that year. It was very good at that. Training was very good, very enjoyable, very hard work. It was always hard work focused, or hard work based, so to speak, with the technicalities, in and around it as well, which was good. But they always had aspirations to go and manage at higher level. So it was no surprise when, obviously, that year again we get into Europe that year and we'd done pretty well. So it came as no surprise that other clubs were kind of coming calling. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
definitely. Steve Lomas, what was he like?
He's a madman. Honestly, just an absolute madman. He's completely, again, coming for the setup with Dell and Doc had, it was very different, bringing Tommy Wright in as well. Tommy was straight down the line, tell you how it is, but old school in terms of his training and that. But Lomas was very much, laughy, jokey, trying to have a laugh around about training and all that kind of stuff. But again, just a different type of manager, having to work alongside. So, I think he'd inherited a really good squad there. I think that's what helped. There was a lot of boys in there that, we had at Falkirk when we were there where, the changing room manages itself. The manager doesn't really need to go in there and sort things out or, pick on it too much, which I think Lomas inherited in the St Johnstone changing room. There's a lot of experience in there, a lot of boys that had been around the game, a lot of boys that played a lot of games, even though they were still a bit younger, and all kind of focused on the one goal. St Johnstone was always a hard-working team, and still is. You see it in their performances, you know what I mean? They're always grafting all the time, never making the game easy for you, sort of thing. So that was always kind of, installed in us anyway. And again, that second year, fortunate enough to go and to get into Europe and that again, which was massive for the club. 2 years in a row was great.
And then obviously you have your 2 years at St Johnstone, you finished sixth and finished third, just playing Europe. Do you have a couple of bad injuries and kind of illnesses as well? How did you feel physically at that point?
So that, I was absolutely fine at a point. But what happened was near the end of the season, there was obviously contract talks about extending my contract and that. And then, at the same time, I'd been kind of playing near the end of the season. I was kind of in and out of the team a wee bit. So the questions start to come to my mind of what's next year looking like. Am I going to play the same? Is it going to be the same in and out? Or am I going to play regular? So again, there's possibly conversations with other teams at the same time, but managed to get a contract agreed with St Johnstone, verbally agreed it. But at the same time, I was getting a wee bit of bother with my knee. So the physio at the time had suggested getting a scan on it. And at the point, I was a wee bit wary of doing that just because of where my contract situation was at.
Yeah.
But I spoke to the club and they were like, look, it's fine, go and get the scan. We'll get the contract arranged and whatever. So get the scan and realise that I've got a small tear, a small kind of crack in my cartilage, which they said was all right. Need an operation, but the kind of recovery time for it might be fairly lengthy. It might be kind of 3-4 months. So then at the time, obviously Tommy Wright was there, and they'd had a few conversations, and he says, look, it's fine, get the operation and that, and get it done as quick as possible, sort of thing, so that your recovery time is then complete quicker. Yeah. So that was fine. Got the operation, and then I'm sitting in the bed at Ross Hall Hospital. Goes on the phone to my agent, and he's like, listen, they've sent an email to say that there's no contract there. And I'm like, what? And I swear to God, my heart just sank, because I'm sitting thinking to myself, I'm definitely going to be out for 3 months here.
Right.
With no possibility of playing or anything like that. And and everything just kind of fell apart a wee bit, to be honest. Had a couple of meetings with them, and it was very much, there was a lot of stuff just going on that, nobody taking responsibility. Some people saying that the contract wasn't on the table, since back in January or February, whereas, only a week before it, I was agreeing on a couple of things to go into the contract. So a lot of confusion, which ultimately just ended up in me not having a contract. So again, felt pretty vulnerable at that point. Knew I was going to be injured for a couple of months, 3 months, and then having to do that recovery without having a team as well.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough at the time that through the PFA and the SFA, there's facilities at Hampden where you get to do your recovery. So managed to get a few of those sessions, and then after that, Gary Holt, who was at Falkirk at the time, he'd kind of phoned me a couple of times and seen how I was, and then said, look, listen, come in and use the facilities here. So he offered me to go in and get use of the physio there, which was great. And then after that, maybe 2-3 weeks after that, he'd said, look, listen, I'm going to get a contract offer, because he knew the type of player I was, knew kind of type of professional I was, and how I'd look after myself and focus on my rehab and that. And then ultimately, that's how I ended up signing at Falkirk. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Your first season at Falkirk, you finished third and lose the playoff. How hard was that?
That was difficult. It was difficult because we'd done so well. But against Hamilton, they were kind of, so to speak, our main rivals in the league, and there was that expectation to go straight up and what have you. So it was difficult. I ended that season. in the playoffs and that, and me personally, I went and dislocated my shoulder in the last game and that as well, and so it was just a pretty poor end to the season, and then obviously Holty left the club as well.
Yeah.
So again, a bit of transition there where I think I just agreed on our contract, or I was in the midst of agreeing it because I'd only signed a year. So just kind of waiting to see who the new manager was that was going to come in.
Peter Houston gets the job. Obviously, you worked with Peter Houston before. How did you feel about
that? I'll not lie, and I've said to him as well, that I was a bit apprehensive. I was a bit kind of nervous because when he came into Dundee United with Craig Levein, obviously it takes you straight back to that position where you think, what did they think about me as a player, all this kind of stuff. Plus, I was thinking about what he was like as a coach at the time. So Houston at Dundee United was a very full-on coach. He'd done a lot of the training. He was very harsh on boys. He was, he set high standards, and at times, it was tough going. So him coming in, I'm thinking to myself, like, we're going to be in for the same here, and am I going to get much an opportunity? Is he thinking about me as a player I was back then? All this kind of stuff. But, very quickly after that, all that kind of get quashed because I had a couple of conversations with him. Ended up, then he made me captain. And straight away I think myself, right, okay. And it was, he again as well was in a different place for where he was at Dundee United as a coach, as a person, as a manager and stuff. So look, for there, a really, really good relationship started to open up, to be honest. In all the course of the time that Houston was there, I felt as though I grew massively in terms of being a captain, being a player, understanding the game, understanding the coaching side of it, understanding different parts of the game, because he was so open with some of his content and how much he actually, brought me into, so to speak. Whereas a lot of managers will be quite shielded and, they'll have their coaching staff but don't bring a lot of players in. But he was great. He was great at the time.
Brilliant. There was a player there who obviously we've now got on the channel, Rory Loy. You must have a brilliant Rory Loy story. But first of all, what was it like as a player?
Rory came in, obviously, good goal scoring track record and that, and there was already a few boys there that knew him. But he came in and first quite quiet, kind of guarded, so to speak. I think just sussing the place out, sussing the boys out and whatever. But then as time grew, you see what type of person Rory is now. I obviously still speak to him a lot, try to get out for a beer with him for about 2 or 3 months now, and we just can't get timings right. But he is one of the most inquisitive person I've ever known, honestly, which is brilliant, right? Because some of the shit he used to come up with in the changing room, right, would spark conversations for days, right? Honestly, I kid you not. But it was brilliant, and just the way he thinks about stuff. Like some of this, it got me thinking and got loads of boys thinking in a completely different way. You know what I mean? For example, like food, for instance, right? How does when you think about food, right? I can't remember if he asked the question or he just made the statement that, like, talking about food. I think it was maybe lunch or something, and he smelt his food, right? Or somebody smelt their food or something, and his question was, how does food not smell the same as it tastes? You know what I mean? It just shit like that, you know what I mean? Where you're thinking, well, should it taste the same as it smells, or should it smell the same? Why is it different? Why is it no? Just stuff like that, just every day, and then it became like things like this, would you rather, just coming up with just random shit. I don't know if he's done it with you yet, has he?
Oh yeah, no. We'll get that.
I mean, like, just, and there was a lot of like really crude ones in there, you know what I mean? But just, would you rather do this than do that? Sort of. Like, would you rather, take 10 punches in the face every morning, or stab yourself in the leg once and that's it, done? So, shit like that, right? But that's just a random option there, right? But there was, as I said, there was some pretty ridiculous ones in there, like involving family members, involving girlfriends, involving other people and all that, you know what I mean? So you can imagine where the conversation goes. But honestly, and I'm pretty sure you will agree, some of the way he questions things and the way he thinks about things is brilliant. I love it because he's got a completely different way of thinking about things. In terms of even that side, the player, but as a player, brilliant. He done like so well for us.
Yeah.
The amount of goals he scored, the goals that he created out of nothing, just his hard work, you know what I mean, and his craft was brilliant as well. And I think he had a really good time that first year in terms of how he was playing and the goals he was scoring as well. Massive goals for us as well, and some really big games. For going back to the other side there, I had the pleasure of, so like Christmas night out, right? So one of the stories, Christmas night out, and we'd set it up. So I wanted to do something a wee bit different one year, right? So kind of set it up that you would pick somebody out. So it'd be kind of two hats, pick somebody out, and you pick a letter out. I think it was I pick a letter out, or a colour or something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, so you had to basically, that person, you had to choose an outfit for them, right? But it wasn't like a nice outfit. So it was a fancy dress. It would be on the Sunday. You had to pick like a horrendous outfit. You had to go like full pelt on them and try and make them look as bad as possible. So basically, Rory had the opportunity today for me. And I can't remember what it was, whether it was a colour or it might have been like a luminous or something like that, like a luminous colour. So anyway, I ended up set up with, was it like a boob tube with fucking hot pants, knee-high stockings and a pair of a luminous yellow high heels. Right, I don't know where he produced these things for, by the way, right? Absolutely horrendous, right? And I'm actually surprised how well I walked in them. Right, it was at first it was like fucking hell, my lip, Bambi, you know what I mean, like kind of oil shop. But then I think it's probably, don't get me wrong, the 25 pints probably helped as well. You know what I mean? But you just, you're not in control of your body anyway. But some great times, like some of the trips away. We did a couple of years where we went to Dublin 2 years in a row, I think. Or we went to Newcastle, sorry, and then went to Dublin. But some of the stories then just ridiculous. Boys getting dragged about like on leashes and all this, and fucking on madness. But I'm pretty sure he'll fill you in.
Brilliant. Brilliant. That run at the Scottish Cup final in 2015, what was the highlights of that?
So it was weird that season because obviously the focus the 2 years before it was on promotion. You know what I mean, and try to get into playoffs or trying to get promoted. Whereas that year, I think we had Rangers and Hibs in it.
Yeah, Hearts were in it as well, aye.
Hearts in it, aye. Hearts were in it as well. So you're starting the season and you're like, fucking hell, it's, automatic promotion is probably, non-existent when you've got three teams at that level paying the sort of money they were paying and, the calibre of player that they had. But, you still say to yourself, right, well, you still got to aim to get into the playoffs. But, it was just one of the years in the cup run. We done really well. Some of the games we had in that, and early course of the year, that it takes the kind of focus away for the league as well. But at the same time, some of the games we had that year in the league, against Rangers and that, with some massive results, beating Rangers and whatever as well, which was great. But we started to, I felt at that point, following on for the year but before it as well, there was a massive kind of growth in our mindset as well. We became a team that just was never done. We were never finished, whether we were getting beat 2-0 or whether we were winning 3-1, it didn't matter. The game was just going on and on, and the more games went on, the stronger we were getting.
Yeah.
Which was it was great, being part of that as well, because the mind takes over when you're tired or when you're the kind of physical side of that as well. So we started to grow as a team, and we knew as a team the more the game was going on, we were always going to have a strong finish, especially at Falkirk. Especially at Falkirk Stadium, there was a kind of, I was going to say routine there, but the way games were going, they were always mapping it the same way, where we, if we started in this half, first half, the second half, get into our fans, there was always that drive. We'd always have a lot of possession. We'd always have a lot of opportunities, loads of corners, free kicks, shots and goal. And it just seemed to happen game after game after game, whether it be in the cup games, whether it be against Rangers, against Hibs, some of the games that we came back for. And a lot of boys were playing, at a good level in terms of like their performances. They were really performing, which was great. We were doing really well as a back four or a back three, and then you had boys up front like Rory, Bob McCune, all that kind of stuff coming on and scoring at times when we were maybe out of sight in the game, just to give you that kind of lifeline again. So that year, it was devastating not to win the cup, because the way the game went, getting to the final, and no disrespect to Inverness, with us in Inverness in the cup final, they would have been the exact same. They would have been looking at going like that, what an opportunity to win the cup. And we were saying the exact same, because you weren't there up against one of the old firm. You weren't there up against Aberdeen, the Hearts, or Hibs, or a kind of team with a higher calibre of player. And, we've seen it. And the way the game went, any time I look back at it, I think myself, fucking, like how, it just kind of like disappeared for the point of, the sending off. We maybe think, right, brilliant, the game's only going to go one way, and that's exactly how we thought. It was only going to go one way, and then Inverness get the breakaway, and it was massive disappointing. But again, over the course of the kind of 4 years at Falkirk, every year we were challenging for something. Whether it be in the playoffs or whether it be the Scottish Cup final, that as well, which was good, because as a club, they put a lot into things. They put a lot into the players. They put a lot into the infrastructure behind it, to help try and get the club achieving things. And it was just disappointing not to get that last bit.
Definitely. Obviously, the year after that as well, you lose to Kelly in the playoff, and then obviously that was your kind of 4 years at Falkirk. What was your kind of favourite memories of your time at Falkirk after the cup final?
You could pick something out every year, definitely. As I said, being in the playoffs for 3 years out of the 4, being in the Scottish Cup final. Some of the games, as I mentioned before, some of the games we had against, especially Rangers, I remember some of the games at the Falkirk Stadium were brilliant. They were great games. They were full on. They were challenging games. They were games that people expected us to not get into. You know what I mean? Whereas you boys, coming up with massive goals at massive times in the game. Will Vokes, scoring some great goals. Bob McHugh, as I mentioned, Miles Hippolyte, myself, Big Pete and that at the back, scoring some goals against, at set pieces and that as well. But at that point as well, you had boys in the team who knew, although you're playing against a better calibre player, they wanted to show that you could do better than that team. You could do better than that player as well, which was massive. So, obviously for me, being club captain, being involved, being able to lead the boys, at a Scottish Cup final was a massive moment for my time there. As I said, the only kind of disappointing thing was not to get that last bit, not to get promotion against Kilmarnock, not to get the Scottish Cup final. But again, we've done extremely well to get into the positions as well. Yeah,
definitely. You move on to Peterhead after that. How did you feel about going part-time?
At that transition, the kind of years before it, when I was at Falkirk, that's when I was still doing personal training, doing wee bits and pieces here and there, because I was consciously thinking of what's the next step. Like I knew, obviously, getting to 30, 33, 34, things are going to start to slow down, the body's going to start to slow down, I need to start thinking about other things. And at the time, I wasn't fully focused on coaching. I'd done my B licence by that point, and, but I wasn't, eager like to get right into coaching, because I was kind of focused on the fitness side of things. So at that point, I was fortunate that Falkirk had just built a new performance gym underneath one of the stands. They gave me the opportunity to run that. So, even though I wasn't getting a contract for Houston, the opportunity was there to still work with the first team, or just on a different position or a different level. So I took that on, which was great. The opportunity to work, do bits and pieces around a bit on the pitch, and obviously some strength conditioning stuff in the gym as well with the boys, which was great. So that was brilliant. But as time went on, I found the job harder and harder because I wasn't allowed to express myself and what I was trying to do with the position. Wanting to open up the gym as a facility to the public, get some fans in there, but the kind of chief executive at the time very much wanted to go a different route, which was tough. And I was trying to go that way, but ultimately I got to a point where I thought to myself, right, I'm banging my head against a brick wall here. But getting into that job, leading back to your question about Peterhead, getting into that job, I thought to myself, right, that's me pretty much finished playing. I'll focus on this. It's a new job. I need to have everything fully focused on it. And then Jim get in touch, Jim McCracken, and he was like, he was very much open to whatever I wanted to do. He's like, he says, look, I know you've took on a job there. He says, we're part-time. He says, construct it how you want. He says, I'll look after you. I know, like, obviously older pro, all that kind of stuff. And it was good. It was, and I thought to myself, actually, why not? It gives me an opportunity to still play. Plus, they just get relegated, and his position was that, he wanted to go straight back up again. So again, that's what drew me in. It was the fact to go and win something else, go and get another promotion. So went into that. But if I'm being totally honest, I didn't realise how hard I would find the transition of going for full-time training to a full-time job and part-time training. Completely different structure. The gym job was mentally straining me, so to speak, because I was having to think in a completely different way. Physically, I could go and batter myself every single day, no problem, because that's what I'd done for the past 20 years. But to be sitting at a laptop, to be sitting at a desk, thinking about things, thinking about different strategies, phoning people, working out different things financially, was just mentally straining on me. And I found it hard to deal with it, to be honest. And I was finding myself, going to training and feeling physically fatigued because I'd been, mentally straining myself all day. And as I said, I found it hard to adapt to that. And I spoke to a few people who'd done the same, and they said, look, you do need to realise that, it's a different setup. I was going up to train at Peterhead, and I was trying to train at the same level I was training with Falkirk every day. So I was getting in there full pelt, smashing it. And, quite quickly I found myself, I knew my fitness wasn't at the same level because I wasn't training every single day. And then I was trying to go into the training sessions full pelt, and I was picking up wee niggly injuries because of it. So again, massive transition in terms of that, how I had to train myself, try to find time in my day to train, rather than being able to just turning up and somebody training you. At football, then, having to actually say to myself, right, I'm training football like Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, whatever it might be, 2 nights a week. So what other days am I going to train myself? What types of training am I going to do myself as well? And how am I going to fit that into my 8:30 to 5:30 job at Falkirk as well? So I'm now doing sessions at 7 in the morning, or I'm trying to do sessions at 6 at night when I'm done in anyway. So that was all. It was really difficult, to be honest. And it took me a bit of time to get used to that sort of transition. But fortunate enough for me, Jim was very, very responsive to that, and kind of let me, some nights or some days I'd be on the way up to training, and I'd phone him and say to him, look, listen, I'm fucking knackered here, or I'm feeling my calf out. And he's like, look, just do what you want. Like, if you want to just get a bit of treatment for the physio, if you want to just do a bit of running, do what you want. Like, see how you feel. Which was fortunate enough for me.
Yeah, definitely. When did you first hear about the Falkirk manager's job?
So through that course of time, the kind of second year with Peterhead and that, Jim had made it, quite open and honest that I wouldn't play as much. Sorry, that was in That was the third year that I was there. But he said, look, he says, I want you to be part of the coaching staff. He says, if you need to be strict or whatever, then I'll get you to be on the bench. He said, but there's no really any intention for you to play, which was great. At that point, you know, in the second year, I'd been doing some training sessions. Jim had said to me, look, go and do a bit of content, you know, put a bit into this. He wanted some fresh ideas, which was great for me, which then gave me a different insight into football, you know what I mean? Because I was then taking that opportunity, the responsibility to actually put content into the team that was going to affect the Saturday game. Yeah. So again, having a look at a different aspect. And then in that third year, I had loads of content, you know, loads of training, you know, focusing on the defensive side of things, making sure people were set up for set pieces and all that. And then the Falkirk job. So after I get made redundant for the gym position at Falkirk, I then just went into personal training with one of the guys actually who, like, going all the way back to Dundee United, one of the guys stayed in Digsby, boy Christian Taylor, who's got his own gym facility. So again, it's funny how, you know, football goes round and can back itself, so to speak. So Gentile had let me work there for a while, and then I took on a job in Arnold Clark. So I was looking for a wee bit more stable income. Yeah. So I took a job in there. I was in there for probably the best part of 6 months or so, 7 months. And then, you know, the Falkirk job was a strange one, because obviously I'd been back to Falkirk, and, you know, we'd played Falkirk up at Peterhead a couple of times and that, still having conversations with some people at the club and whatever, but knew that Ray McKinnon was under a bit of pressure. And myself and Lee Miller, we were kind of constantly having conversations and whatever anyway, because we're good mates. And then it just took a chance. We'd met the week before. We get contacted about the job, and we're just sitting as we do, right? And Rory will be the same, right? There's a few in that changing room where we'd sit and we'd try and come up, what are you going to do, like, football-wise, what are you going to do outside football, right? And another one was Paul Watson, who's now at Dunfermline, right? I used to sit beside Watson, and every day we'd have something different. It'd be like he wanted to start like a gin. He was going to produce his own gin and all this kind of stuff, and all that. So anyway, part of that conversation with me and Lee was he had this new idea, right? He had this new thing that he was wanting to do, and we were talking. And then we're talking about football and talking about Falkirk. Always came back to Falkirk, so to speak. And then it was just a case of, like, I wonder if that job's going to come up, because he's under massive pressure now. And anyway, that weekend, that's when I got a phone call. You know, a phone call just to say, look, listen, it was Jim that phoned me. He says that Falkirk had been in contact to say, you know, they kind of went run it the right way and said, look, we'd like the opportunity to speak to David. He came in on a kind of caretaker position. So I spoke to him, and then, you know, had that difficult conversation with Jim, to be fair, you know, because he gave me so much in terms of the coaching position and playing in that after a couple of years, and, you know, and I had an open conversation with him, and he said, look, listen, I'll never stand in anybody's way, you know what I mean? If you want to go and try it, he says, if obviously it's just caretaker. So if it doesn't work out, then come back. He says, oh, no, the position's still here for you. It's no as if you go and that's you, I don't want to see you again. Yeah. Which was really good. So he gave me an opportunity to do it. We went and spoke to Falkirk, you know, and then quite quickly, you know, it's an opportunity you can't really turn down, to try and progress your coaching or your managerial career. So, you know, and we went in there with a real belief that we would be able to turn things around and make things better. And that's what happened, you know, with a quick turnaround. Team started progressing again, and then obviously we get the job full time. And again, that was hard, because obviously I had to say to Jim about it, you know, I was going to take the job full time, and I was fortunate enough that even the Arnold Clark job, the manager had, John at Arnold Clark, he was very open about it as well, you know, and said that, you know, go and take the opportunity, try it out, you know, there's a job here anyway. So, but you know, when you get into the Falkirk job, everything's focused on that. You know, you need to do as best you can, and it's just the way that went that first season. you know, if things hadn't get stopped, you know, we truly believe that we would have been promoted that year, because the way things were going, we were on the front foot, we were progressing, we were getting better and better by each game, and Raith Rovers at the time were kind of up and down, and we seen the opportunity there to kind of kick on again. But you know, as we've seen in the past 2 years now, how crazy things got. We never thought it would have went the way it did.
Were you disappointed in how it ended?
When we left Falkirk?
Aye,
100%. Aye, absolutely. You know,
was it results or was it just pressure? What do you think was the cause of the reason?
I think the board and the chairman and that were under pressure because of the last couple of results. You know, and up until that point, you know, I think we'd been doing fine. You know, we'd been, you know, the results were fine. There was a couple of games where we hadn't get the results we needed or we wanted, you know, but we're still top of the league at that point. You know what I mean? And then obviously the performances, I think, to go along with it, the two last results was one of the biggest things. I think the performance against the Cove, performance in the Cove game was massive disappointment, because that was a big game. We knew we had to produce there, and we were never at the races. And Cove were at it, you know, and fair play to them, they were at it. They put us under pressure. They showed their experience that they had in the team, and you know, and we never took opportunities. We never stood up to it. And that was really disappointing for myself and Lee as managers to see that. And then, you know, we came away from that, and then with the Peterhead game, you know, and we knew we had to have a reaction then. And don't get me wrong, and this is by no means any excuse or anything. The week to 2 weeks before that, with a number of injuries come up to some of our experienced players, boys that, you know, maybe in games like that you need to get a hold of the other ones around about them, and kind of get through the games. But, you know, they weren't there, and the results and the performances, I say, you know, I spoke to Jim after the Peterhead game, and he was like, he says, I just, you know, there was no intention I was playing football. He says, I knew if we tried to play football against you would have beat us. He said that our main factor was just to get after these, make it hard, put you under pressure, and that's what happened. You know, they never gave us a minute, and we never adapted well enough throughout the game. You know, with a couple of injuries, young boy Ewan Devaney get taken off for a bad injury, and we had to reshuffle again, and then you know, as the game went on, you just think to yourself, you know, nothing's happening here. We're not going to get anything out of this game. And to be honest, after that, you know, it's still massively disappointing. But I still never felt that the decision, you know, to let us go would have been made. There was still a number of games to be played, and even if we never won it outright, then, you know, still opportunity to go into the playoffs and get yourself promoted. But that was probably the biggest thing, that, you know, there wasn't that trust there to keep us in the job. And I don't know what their thinking was in terms of, you know, make the change now so that they maybe get a kick getting into the end of the season. Don't know. But, you know, moving forward, after we'd left, we quickly realised that there was a number of other issues that were going on, that weren't helping our position in the manager's job, that probably weren't helping the players' position either. So, you know, you look back in that, and a massive learning experience, learnt loads, that would do differently getting into the next manager's position or coaching position, you know, and just realising that, you know, some people are in positions to do certain jobs, which is fair enough, you know what I mean, and they've got to do that, but at the same time, there's certain ways of doing things, I think. Yeah,
definitely. See, if you went back into coaching and management, would it be with kind of in the same kind of setup again?
I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, as I said, me and Lee, obviously Lee's still continuing to play and now trying to do a bit of pride in that as well. He's also looking at a different career move as well. So setting up, doing a bit of barbering and that as well, and just, you know, something that he likes doing, which is fair enough. But, you know, I think it would need to be, I think it depends on the job, depends on what comes up, you know, whether he would want to do it, whether I would want to do it, whether I'd be in a position to do it. I think, you know, I think we work really well alongside each other. You know, and that's why the kind of co-manager thing worked for us, because, you know, I think we do challenge each other. We do challenge each other's decisions or the way we think. But I think kind of leading on near the end of it, I think both of us, you know, probably get influenced by others around us too much, rather than kind of staying true to our own decisions. So getting into like a new position, I enjoy the managerial position. I enjoy that, you know, that point of responsibility to make that decision, and whether it be the right one or not, then that's fine. But I'd much rather be in that position to make that strong decision and say, right, well, this is what I'm going with, and that's what I'm sticking with, than having others on board to influence that decision sometimes. So it's just, it's, you know, whatever comes up. After the Falkirk job, I did look at a couple of other positions. I said get interviews and whatever, but then you know, at the moment I'm focusing on a new business, new property business, which is going great. You know, focusing mainly on the kind of estate agency side just now, with a few other developments going on in the next few months as well. So, you know, focusing on that. But, you know, once the right opportunity comes up in football, then it'll definitely be a chance to get back in there, and something that I'll look to do, 100%.
Brilliant. Hope to see you back in football soon. Are you all right closing with some quick fire questions?
Yes, aye.
Who would you say was the best player you ever played with, apart from Rory Loy?
Oh, you've killed my answer now. Aye, it was going to be Rory. Aye, he, by the way, he will be expecting that answer. I think looking back, Charlie Miller at Dundee United was a great player, outstanding. You know, he could turn the game on its head, like with a couple of passes, and an absolute character to go with as well.
Best player you ever played against?
Played against, I think one that I learnt a lot from was playing against him was Henrik Larsson. So played against him numerous occasions for Celtic, and he was never one to become complacent with, you know, because there was a lot of time where, you know, you would be doing so well against him throughout the game, you know, kind of marking him at the game, stopping balls into him, you know, winning the ball back off him or whatever it might be, and then in one instance, you know, like, it might go wide and you think, right, he's there, you look at the ball would come in, and then bang, he's 5 yards away from you, and he's finishing, you know what I mean? So for me, his time at Celtic and my opportunities playing against him, that was a massive learning experience for me.
Brilliant. Favourite away ground you played at?
Favourite away, I think in terms of Scotland and that, you know, definitely Parkhead and Ibrox, you know, or one and the other. Just the atmosphere there is unbelievable, you know, and especially now with fans being back and stuff like that, you know, what an opportunity when you're playing there to have that amount of fans. And you know, I remember playing there for the first time when I was younger, playing at Parkhead, and you know, my brothers are in the stand and that, and they do the huddle and that, and they walk on and everything, and I'm standing like this, just in total on it, you know, forgetting that I'm about to kick off to a game here. But I think both of them, the atmosphere that they bring is second to none.
Brilliant. Favourite film and TV show?
Favourite film, right? So it's got to be something kind of daft. Step Brothers is definitely up there. Or like I like ones with Jim Carrey in it, which a lot of times I've been compared to Jim Carrey just because of my stupid facials and all that. So maybe something like Bruce Almighty or 40-Year-Old Virgin or something.
Favourite footballing memory?
There could be a few in there. Obviously, international, you know, playing for the under-21s and stuff like that was a great opportunity in being involved with, you know, the calibre of player round about there as well. But then obviously being a captain, I think for me, at a number of clubs, I'd had a small opportunity at Dundee United. Then when I went to Wycombe, being the captain there, coming up, and then obviously captain in Falkirk and being able to, you know, captain them to, you know, taking them out in Scottish Cup finals and that as well. You know, finals is massive for me. So, those opportunities will always stick.
Brilliant. Best friend in football?
Best friend in football. So for me, Big Lee's one. You know, Rory's a good mate. Over the years, and that there's loads. Obviously, I speak about ones that, you know, I still speak to for Dundee United days, and, you know, some boys that aren't involved in football. You know, like boy Colin Riley and that as well, who I'm close with. But it's one of the ones where you've loads of mates in football, but, you know, but very few friends. So I still waiting. Well, I'm saying Rory, but he's still to buy me a pint, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
We're called the night. We'll tell him, we'll ask him about that. We'll chat about that in the show. Final question, best manager you played under?
See, I'm probably fortunate that, you know, I've had a number, you know, where, you know, in different kind of perspectives. With Paul Lambert, you know, he's got a very different style. Peter Taylor, you know, very structured and very, you know, very true to his kind of morals and what he does. But probably later on in my career, but probably because I was a bit older and a bit more experienced, I could see it. Was Peter Houston. You know, the relationship that I had with Houston throughout that time, and probably, as I said, being able to see what he was showing me and what he was kind of teaching me was great as well. So. And you know, I still kind of speak to him on and off as well. So he's still there, you know, giving me bits of advice in that as well. So so fortunate enough to have them.
Brilliant. David, it's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show, mate. Thanks very much for coming on. I've really enjoyed it, and best of luck for the future of the business.
No, brilliant. It's been great listening. I'll continue to watch what you guys are producing as well and see what the man Rory has got to say about it.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
All right. Top man. Cheers.